James Logan Howlett, better known as the Wolverine, is one of Marvel's most iconic anti-heroes. He's a mutant, a soldier, a samurai, mercenary, avenger, and longtime member of the X-Men. Logan has lived more lives than most people could ever dream of. His main power is his healing factor, a biological miracle that allows him to recover from nearly any wound, resist disease, and slow down the aging process to basically a crawl. Add to that the retractable claws and the adamantium skeleton courtesy of the Weapon X program, then you have one of the most deadliest beings on the entirety of the Marvel Earth as a whole. But if you think about it, that gift that he has really comes with an impossible price. Centuries of war, pain, and loneliness that not even his regeneration can erase. Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And today we're going to be talking about and digging into one of the most grimiest takes in all of the superhero fandom, and that is why Wolverine, and just why being Wolverine, would absolutely suck. Logan might look like the definition of cool: claws, leather jacket, rugged Canadian charm, and a healing factor that makes him nearly unstoppable. But beneath the legend of the man who we have known for so long at this point is a man who has been ripped apart, rebuilt, brainwashed, and broken more times than anybody else should be able to endure. Behind that swagger, behind the scars, lies a life that has had more tragedy than triumph. So strap in, because this one honestly probably will cut deep, either literally or emotionally. So let's get into it. If you guys do enjoy this video, please make sure leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys do enjoy this video, and let's continue on. Firstly, let's talk about the most important thing. That immortality that he basically has, and the fact that it is not a gift, it is basically just a life sentence. Wolverine's healing factor means that he does not age like the rest of us, but still time will march on. Friends, lovers, children, teammates, all will fade away, while he keeps walking the earth and walking the same fight that he's been doing for so long. The emotional toll of watching every person you have ever loved die while you just stay behind living around is going to be crushing. I have thought about this so many different times when people talk about, oh, would you want immortality if you could have it? And while yes, there could be some perks like seeing human advance and basically seeing the entirety of the human civilization grow and to do different things, there is also that toll about the fact that all of the people that you have grown attachments to will just basically leave and die, and you're just always going to be kind of watching generations pass on while you can't do anything. It is not just grief. It's an endless cycle of connection and loss that is never going to be taken away just due to the fact that he is who he is. In stories like Old Man Logan, we see the aftermath of centuries of fighting, surviving, losing. Every war, every betrayal, every heartbreak piles onto his soul until he is a living fossil of a human suffering. Immortality doesn't mean peace. It means having to remember every mistake and every death forever. Logan doesn't get closure. He gets more time to hurt. Because they say time heals all wounds, specifically just due to the fact that it's all in the mind at the end of the day. But that is one of the most painful parts about being Wolverine. And that is the non-physical part. The mental part is one of the hardest parts. His mind is a battlefield of erased memories, implanted lies, and lost years. Weapon X, the same program that gave him the adamantium claws, stripped away his entire identity, to the point that, yes, everybody knows him as Logan, but his name isn't even Logan, it is James Howlett. Like, this is a program that basically stripped away his entire identity. Imagine waking up one day with no realization of who you are, what you were doing before then, just flashes of violence, strange names, and the ghosts of people who might have loved you and who you might have loved. Even when his memories do return, they come back like shards, fragmented, confusing, and unreliable. Logan's entire sense of self is basically just constantly in flux. Every time he starts to rebuild, somebody tears it apart again. That's not a life. That's just an internal identity crisis. Wolverine's healing factor lets him survive almost anything, but he still feels everything. He feels the bullets, he feels the emotions, he feels the burns, he feels the broken bones, he feels the blades. His body just heals afterwards. His mind, that's a different story, but his body does that. That means the pain doesn't stop, it just resets. Being burned to death, healing, then going through it all again for the next battle or whatever. It just becomes agony as the routine. He doesn't die. He just suffers longer for shorter amount of times, yes, but it's just more consistent. Whether it's being in a war zone with Captain America during World War II, or basically being in every war and being alive for however long, just always having to deal with some kind of pain. And that's before we even get to the adamantium, the metal that is fused to his skeleton, a living reminder of his torture under the Weapon X program, and it is very much a heavy and toxic thing that he always has to deal with. And there's always, the straining his body even as his healing factor fights to keep up, because when that healing fails, as it did in the death of Wolverine, his body literally poisons itself. We see this in the Logan movie. The fact that as he gets older, his body can't heal as fast as it usually would, so the adamantium is now actively harming his body more and more. Every breath hurts. Every movement becomes agony. His invincibility becomes a prison of constant endurance, which truly makes it so much worse. And that's not even getting into the berserker rage and the monster within that he basically has to keep in a cage at almost any given point in time. Because we know Wolverine's rage is both his greatest weapon and his greatest curse. The berserker state that he basically has is pure instinct that he's very good at driving in and very good at using. That animal side of his mind basically taking over, turning him into a creature of claws and blood. Because, he'll lose control, but that's why we love him sometimes, and most of the time, honestly. He'll stop being Logan and become something more primal, something more designed only to kill. And he is extremely good at that. That kind of blackout fury isn't just dangerous to enemies. Obviously, it terrifies him because he has spent years trying to prove that he is more than just a beast. But every time that red haze hits, he's reminded of the weapon that he was before he was a person. And that fear of losing control, of hurting somebody that he loves, haunts him more than any villain could ever possibly do. Like, I've already said this before. Being this kind of person that has to live so many times and live so much longer than everybody else will run its time, will run its course, and will eventually get you feeling worse and worse. Especially when you have to deal with being treated like a weapon. Being treated and used like a weapon. Because Logan has been manipulated, brainwashed, and used by nearly every major faction in the Marvel Universe. Weapon X turned him into lab rats. Governments basically just used him as a soldier. Villains have triggered his rage to make him kill innocents, and even his friends, the X-Men, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Avengers, have asked him to take on missions they wouldn't give to anybody else. Why? Because they know he'll survive. It's not that he's expendable, which sometimes they might make it seem like that, but it's more so that healing factor gives him more of leeway to be able to take all of these extra missions that nobody else should be taking just because he's more likely to survive and maybe get the job done. Will he be extremely injured? Yeah. But that's not really the concern here. He's the guy who will do the dirty work and carry out the guilt and carry all that guilt afterwards. People call him a hero, but most days he's just a man doing damage control for the monsters who basically are trying to just get him to do all of the work that they need. For the monsters that others make him into, specifically. Like, I can't remember the exact comic name, but I know for a fact that I was reading a comic a while back where Wolverine is basically sent in by somebody else to kill a kid just due to their mutant ability. Specifically, one, he will survive. The mutant ability was basically just anybody in a specific, I don't know if it was like a 10-meter radius or a 200-meter radius or whatever, would basically just either die or whatever, like something like that, once they were in that zone, and there was no way to shut it off. So Wolverine basically just said, I will have to take care of this and put you out of your misery to save everybody else that it could possibly be around you and make sure that you don't go mad. Kind of just taking the guilt and taking the pain from that kid and having to take that guilt onto himself just to spare the kid a lifetime of being alone, because that is all that kid is now destined for. If I'm not mistaken, that comic was Ultimate X-Men number 41, and I would really suggest you guys read it. But yeah, continuing on. There is also the issue of love, loss, and loneliness that Wolverine does have to deal with. Specifically, the fact that Wolverine has loved more deeply than most, and has lost more painfully than anybody could ever possibly imagine. Whether it's Rose, Jean Grey, Mariko Yashida, Silver Fox, or countless others, every time that Logan opens up his heart, fate finds a way to tear it apart. Whether it's through death, betrayal, or time itself, love always ends in tragedy for him. The repeated heartbreak has basically turned him into a man that is afraid of attachment. Obviously, he has his very weird ongoing situation with Scott and Jean and that entire polycule three-way couple that we all make jokes about, but he usually keeps people at an arm's length distance just because losing them hurts worse than the solitude. But that isolation is its own punishment. The one thing that he can't heal from, because even among the X-Men, Wolverine will never really truly be at peace. He's an eternal outsider, a part of the team, but always standing a little apart, watching as everybody else is aging, laughing, and dying while he endures. He could be a part of the first X-Men team and be along well after Xavier is dead and way, way into the future just due to how his body works, which will truly have to run into his heart at some point, as I keep saying, because that is so true. And going back to just talking about his healing factor, that is going to be a very big problem, especially with the fact that I've already mentioned Weapon X. They're not the only people that have tried using and experimenting on Logan, because that healing factor makes him immune to most diseases, but that doesn't mean it would have ever stopped scientists from trying to test those limits. He's been poisoned, infected, cloned, genetically experimented on more times than anybody could ever count. And each time, his body versus basically everything that the world could possibly throw at him. And he usually wins. Victory will cost him a little more every time, but he is just a survivor no matter what. His biology is both a weapon and a target, and that curse forces him to be in constant battle with his own nature, and the world that really never lets him stop being the guinea pig for pain, which truly will always be one of the main reasons that I love Wolverine so much, because he is somebody that is so deeply hurt, but still is trying to do his best and do good just for the sake of everybody else. Even though he has killed hundreds, maybe thousands over his entire lifetime, some were monsters. Honestly, most were probably monsters. Some were people who didn't deserve to live. And either way, the blood never really washes off. That kind of moral burden doesn't really fade with time. It festers. Every time he looks at his claws, he sees ghosts, the enemies, the innocents, and the friends who got caught in the crossfire. He isn't haunted by that guilt alone, but he is haunted by the fact that he'll never get the chance to make it right. The world changes, worlds ends, but Wolverine is always going to be left standing. He is carrying the sin of everything that he's ever committed, and it's not bravery, it's just more endurance. Yes, he is brave. Yes, he has courage and all of these things, but that's not going to matter when you're basically just living through your mind and still have to think about everything that you've ever done when knowing that you have long, long to go. So yeah, Wolverine might look awesome in the movies, in posters, or whatever, but the claws and all of those fighting and all of that things that he's ever had, it looks nice, but in reality, it probably is more close to hell. Like immortality without peace, healing that brings no rest, love that is always ending in loss, a body turned into a weapon, and a mind that is really never truly belonging to itself would never be a good idea to have and doesn't sound all that pleasant in general. And yet, that's really what makes him so compelling. Despite all that trauma, despite all that pain, he keeps fighting. He chooses to do better. He chooses to be human, even when the world refuses to see him as one, especially with all of the rest of the mutants. So, yeah, being Wolverine would absolutely suck. Like, it would just not be good at all. And maybe that's what makes him one of the most human heroes that I could possibly think of. But yeah, what do you think? Would you take his powers if you meant really living with his pains? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.